This one, Richard II was of course deposed, was overthrown by Bolingbroke, and got him somewhat depressed. And there's a little bit here. For God's sake, let us sit upon the ground and tell sad stories of the death of kings. How some have been deposed, some slain in war, some haunted by the ghosts they have deposed, some poisoned by their wives, some sleeping killed, all murdered. For within the hollow crown that rounds the mortal temples of a king keeps death his court, and there the antic sits, scoffing his state and grinning at his pomp, allowing him a breath, a little scene, to monarchize, be feared, and kill with looks, infusing him with self and vain conceit, as if this flesh which walls about our life were brass impregnable. And, humoured thus, comes at the last, and with a little pin bores through his castle wall, and farewell, king. Hamlet had a recent murder of his father. Opens in the court scene with the Queen and the new king, and they finally leave, and so he's left on his own. And he says, oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt, thaw and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Oh God, how weary, flat, stale and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fie on it, oh fie. 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. That it should come to this. But 2 months dead. Nay, not so much, not 2. So excellent a king that was to this Hyperion to a satire. So loving to my mother that he might not between the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Heaven and earth must I remember. Why, she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. And yet, within a month, oh, let me not think on it. Frailty, thy name is woman. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body like Niobe all tears, why she, even she, oh God, a beast that once discourse of reason would have mourned longer, married with mine uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules. Within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her galled eyes, she married. Oh, most wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets! It is not, nor it cannot come to good. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue.
If you can get in touch with Shakespeare's language and learn to love the language in the same way that he himself loved it, it does half of the work for you. For instance, if a character is going to be enraged at something, then Shakespeare will give him the kind of words that just by themselves provoke anger. I can give you an example. In Hamlet, for instance, when Hamlet discovers that his uncle murdered his father, once he realizes that, Shakespeare gives him particular words that will provoke emotion, let alone the idea about the murder. For instance, if I do it neutrally, it doesn't mean very much. He has the lines, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain, oh vengeance. Now, the repetition of the sound and the meaning of the one word is repeated, and it helps you. So if I say, I'm thinking of this particular murder, and I say, oh, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain, oh, vengeance. And that's another thing he does. He often uses an open vowel to start to help you express the emotion. It comes through the open vowel. He doesn't say vengeance, he just says, oh, vengeance. He often uses that device. When Juliet's thinking of Romeo, she doesn't say, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? She says, oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? It starts with the open vowel constantly. And that's very helpful too.
Hamlet visits the graveyard where Ophelia has been buried and talks to the gravedigger, and the gravedigger picks up a skull, and the gravedigger says to Hamlet, whose do you think it was? And Hamlet says, nay, I know not. A pestilence on him for a mad rogue. I poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, was Yorick's skull, the king's jester. And Hamlet takes the skull. This? In that? Alas, poor Yorick. I knew him, Horatio. A fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times, and now, abhorred in my imagination it is, my gorge rises at it. Here hung those lips that I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your jibes now? Your gambols, your songs, your flashes of merriment that were wont to set the table on a roar. Not one now to mock your own grinning, quite chop fallen. Now get you to my lady's chamber, and tell her, let her paint an inch thick. To this favour she must come. Make her laugh at that. A little bit at the end when Macbeth is finally just before the end. They come in and say, the Queen, my lord, is dead. He says, she should have died hereafter. There would have been a time for such a word. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow, creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way through dusty death. out, out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. What I like about this song is the incredible irony. Shakespeare is a master of irony, and he sometimes really goes to town. Listen to this one. When my love swears that she is made of truth, I do believe her, though I know she lies. That she might think me some untutored youth, unlearned in the world's false subtleties. Thus, vainly thinking that she thinks me young, though she knows my days are past the best, simply I credit her false-speaking tongue. On both sides thus is simple truth suppressed. And wherefore says she not she is unjust? And wherefore say not I that I am old? Oh, love's best habit is in seeming trust, and age in love loves not to have years told. Therefore, I lie with her, and she with me, and in our faults by lies we flattered be.
One of the things that I began to learn about Shakespeare is that he's so fond of using alliteration. He's fond of repeating consonants in the same line, repeating sound in the same line, and unless as an actor you get in touch with that and love it in the same way, you can't make use of it, and it's important to make use of it. I'll give you some examples. For instance, in Richard II, there's a speech now in which he uses this repetition of consonants. The king says, "Old John of Gaunt, time-honoured Lancaster, hast thou, according to thy oath and bond, brought hither Henry Hereford, thy bold son?" You see, brought hither Henry Hereford, thy bold son. He uses that repetition of H's. And again, in one of the sonnets, for instance, he says, "To me, fair friend, you never can be old, for as you were, when first your eye eyed, such seems your beauty still." So that when first your eye eyed, you know, it's a constant repetition of sound. And if you don't enjoy that and use it, then you lose half of what Shakespeare means.
I've had a request to do this speech. It's somebody's favourite, and it's before the Battle of Agincourt, and when the king overhears one of his nobles saying, "Oh, that we now had here but 1/10,000 of those men in England that do no work today." And the king says, "What's he that wishes so? My cousin Westmoreland? No, my fair cousin. If we are marked to die, we are enow to do our country loss, and if to live, the fewer men, the greater share of honour. God's will, I pray thee, wish not one man more. By Jove, I am not covetous for gold, nor care I who doth feed upon my cost. It earns me not if men my garments wear. Such outward things dwell not in my desires. But if it be a sin to covet honour, I am the most offending soul alive. No faith, my coz, wish not a man from England. God's peace I would not lose so great an honour as one man more methinks would share from me for the best hope I have. Oh, do not wish one more. Rather proclaim it, Westmoreland, through my host, that he which hath no stomach to this fight, let him depart. His passport shall be made, and crowns for convoy put into his purse. We would not die in that man's company. This day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall see this day and live old age will yearly on the vigil feast his neighbours and say, tomorrow is Saint Crispian. Then will he strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispin's day. Old men forget, yet all shall be forgot, but he'll remember with advantages what feats he did that day. Then shall our names, familiar in his mouth as household words, Harry the King, Bedford and Exeter, Warwick and Talbot, Salisbury and Gloucester, be in their flowing cups freshly remembered. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispin, Crispian, shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world, but we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers, for he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Be he ne'er so vile, this day shall gentle his condition. And gentlemen in England, now abed, shall think themselves accursed they were not here, and hold their manhoods cheap, while any speaks that fought with us upon St. Crispian's day. So it's it's very near the opening scene, and the Roman citizens are all out having a great holiday and enjoying themselves. And one of the fellow called Flavius says, "Hence home, you idle creatures! Get you home! Is this a holiday?" And one of them says, "But indeed, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph." "Wherefore rejoice? What conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome, knew you not Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, yea, to chimney tops, your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day in patient expectation to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. And when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made an universal shout that Tiber trembled underneath her banks to hear the replication of your sounds made in her concave shores? And do you now put on your best attire, And do you now cull out a holiday? And do you now strew flowers in his way that comes in triumph over Pompey's blood? Begone! Run to your houses, fall upon your knees, pray to the gods to intermit the plague that needs must light on this ingratitude.